Now, that's not an anti-U.S. sentiment. That was, that was at the time, or rather, no, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack here a little bit. The tattered remains of Superman's cape, the bottom half, got torn off in the battle with Doomsday. So Martha Kent stitched part of the American flag into his cape. And so they draped it over his grave with like one half being the American flag, the other half being, still part of his actual cape. And that's very symbolic in a way if you think about it, because Superman, he's as American as apple pie. I mean, if you take out the yellow and you put white in there, it's like red, white, and blue. That's the way Superman is. And pretty much right then, Doomsday just attacks, and everyone in the DC universe is wondering, how are we going to do this with, Doomsday still being on the loose? How is... Quit, cat. It's not a plaything. How are we going to move on? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Basically, what are we going to do? Our main pillar of strength and inspiration is gone. And so what ended up happening with... Yes, I see you, cat. You're just causing all kinds of trouble for me. But what ended up happening, Doomsday attacks again, they all start fighting now. While this is going on, while the DC heroes are fighting, there's this War of the Supermen going on. 4 people step forward and say that they're the Man of Steel. John Henry Irons, known as Steel, comes out wearing a Superman cape, and he tries to take up the mantle of Superman, even though he knows he can't. Cyborg, which is like this techno version of Superman, which we find out is an astronaut that Superman apparently had tried to save, but that acid had burned his face off or something like that. Destroyed most of his internal organs. Comes back as a cyborg. And is one of the main villains in like Return of Superman. And there's this other version called the Eradicator, which is like a Alright, as I was saying, the Eradicator, who was the Superman from a future or an alternate dimension who shot energy beams out of his hands. And he was basically like the Punisher version of Superman. If you were guilty, he would kill you. Literally, he would vaporize you. And then the last Superman that was announced was Connor Kent. Yes, the same Superboy otherwise known as Superboy. And this is the same Superboy that's in that new Young Justice cartoon. And he's the one in the current comics who wears like that black t-shirt with the S emblem on it. That Connor Kent. That was his like first debut. And back then he had a leather jacket, he had like these really just bizarre goofy outfit, a leather jacket, and these like round circular shades, I don't know what to call it, but they all battled to see, who is the superior Superman. Well, then you find out that Cyborg had actually confiscated Doomsday's body and that Doomsday wasn't really dead. And it's later revealed that Doomsday actually has been dated that he actually could breathe fire, he could excrete a poison that could basically affect even Superman, that he could extend his like rocky weaponized bodies and shoulder pads and all kinds of stuff, and that apparently he can heal any wound, regenerate severed limbs, and could basically come back from the dead even. And then it's found out through its genealogy that it was part Kryptonian, and that the radiation from kryptonite couldn't kill it, but that it could weaken him. And it's then further revealed when Darkseid gets his hands on him that this was a creature that Darkseid had encountered right after he had gotten the Omega Force abilities or something like that. Either that or he just flat out encountered Darkseid. They never really thoroughly explain it. But Darkseid actually ran away from Doomsday. Now think about that. Darkseid, one of the most powerful villains in the DC universe, ran away from Doomsday. You know that it's got to be a very powerful supervillain if even Darkseid runs away. And then apparently it's revealed that Doomsday had also terrorized the planet of Oa, the Green Lantern Corps home, and that one of the Guardians sacrificed himself to open up a wormhole by fighting, Doomsday. And they go into a whole bunch of other backstory stuff, but I'm going to leave that to those of you to read the comics on. But bottom line, Doomsday is probably pretty much like the supervillain version of the Hulk on steroids. And maybe a couple of other things. But basically, no, Doomsday basically nearly kills all the Justice League, and then it's revealed, after he gets into a fight, that Superman comes back. He returns. And one thing that they did do justice in the Superman Doomsday movie is that they did the outfit kind of cool, because Superman had a mullet and he had this entirely black outfit with a chrome S on it. Now, they kind of updated in the animated movie, but still, it looks very similar to the way that it looked in the comics, in that Superman wasn't really dead. His body was just being held to create genetic clones by Lex Luthor. Now that's where the movie kind of fails. Because Superman Doomsday, when you hear it, you think, oh, it's going to be, the movie's just going to focus on Doomsday, because that's exactly what this comic book storyline did. It talked primarily about Doomsday and how even, Superman couldn't stop him, that this creature actually killed Superman. In the movie, it's only a 30-minute fight. He kills Doomsday, and then it's on to Lex Luthor trying to create an evil genetic clone army of Supermen. And Superman has to fight a genetic clone of himself that's basically evil. Tell me that sounds right. I think it actually does sound right. These people were insane when they came up with that storyline. But then again, this was the first straight-to-DVD animated movie that DC did. But still, how can you mess up the formula for a storyline like Superman Doomsday? But then again, they would have to severely cut out a lot of stuff if they put it to TV for kids. So I kind of understand why they did that. But I mean, they did all kinds of stuff in that movie that made no sense. Jimmy Olsen straying and working for a tabloid, and just wow. Just wow. But then pretty much the comic ends with Superman weakening Doomsday, and pretty much he fights Doomsday. Now, there's two different versions from what I hear. From what I'm reading, he got banished to the moon by one of the Justice League teleporters, and that he was divided into 4 clones, each that was reduced to 75% of his power. Whereas in the version that I remember reading, Superman actually throws him into the sun. So I'll leave that up to you guys, but Cyborg is eventually caught, and there's this big fight between Superman, you find out that this black chrome-esque suit is actually a solar suit that's retaining the yellow UV rays of the sun, because that's where his power comes from, is the sun. And the Eradicator is fighting Cyborg along with him, while Eradicator is drastically wounded, and Eradicator basically turns himself into pure energy, restores Superman back to his health, and magically he's back in his old-time outfit, and he's saying, I feel better than ever, and he just squashes Cyborg, and that's it. He saves the day.